Hey guys, Michael Furlong here from Rent Roll Maximiser, and I'm having a chat with a long-term friend, colleague, also co-founder of the Real Estate Resource Group, Mark Appleby from Buckmaster Hawkey. How are you, my friend?
Good, Michael. How are you? Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for spending the time with me today. We work in the same field. We work in the same with the same types of clients, different services, of course, but fundamentally we're trying to solve a problem for clients in the real estate sector. Is that the way you see your business, is solving a problem?
Absolutely. We are a service provider to the real estate industry. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we speak a fair bit, Mark, about what's working well in the industry, but more importantly, what are some of the challenges? And today we're going to talk about the 4 challenges that I really feel that our property management sector is going to face this year. So 2020 was a year which no one wants to repeat. 2021, I'm not sure whether it's going to be better or worse. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think it's going to be a wash-up, Michael. Once we start getting to the end of March and the end of these moratoriums and things, I think, everything that's sort of being not paid, deferred, or propped up by government support such as JobKeeper, those sorts of things, this is going to be like what's going to come out in the wash in 2021. That's what I see playing out. Absolutely.
So the 4 aspects that I looked at was at the end of March, we're going to have the fallout, and I say fallout from there'll be more and more VCAT applications because people won't be able to pay their rent. We can then start to put rental increases up. There'll be eviction notices. I'm not sure whether the government's going to extend the moratorium. So that's the first one, tick 1. Second one is coinciding with that. Victorian government planned this beautifully. They've extended the rollout to the residential tenancies to the end of March, coincides with the moratorium. Crazy. So there's going to be changes to the Tenancies Act. And then, of course, we're now at a stage where we're early January, we're looking to get back into working and reintegrating back into offices. I think there's going to be some fallout there, Mark. What are your thoughts on that one?
Definitely. I think because businesses have got used to adapt under lockdown conditions and sending people to work from home, I think people are reviewing their flexible working arrangements and reviewing the premises they're actually in as a business model. Do I need a space this big anymore? And I think in a lot of cases, the answer is no.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll come back to that one. And then, of course, Mark, one that we've both been speaking about a fair bit, and that is the changes to the entry conditions and the education requirements for the real estate sector, which is October later in the year, and it's just nuts.
That potentially, Michael's huge, which, as you and I know, and we're planning for. We've got some ideas that hopefully we can help the industry address that.
So let's have a look at the first one, which is I reckon it's going to really kick in April. So end of JobKeeper, JobSeeker, not as much, but JobKeeper, and a lot of businesses have still got their staff on JobKeeper, and then what we've got is the end of all the tenancy, I'll call it protections, and there had to be something. I agree with that, but landlords are also being hit with this because then all of a sudden some of these rents will need to be paid back. What are your thoughts on that, Mark? Do you see that's going to impact the movement of staff and the pressures on property managers?
Absolutely. Firstly, to address the JobKeeper, if businesses are struggling to get by with JobKeeper when the government teat is turned off with that, I think that's when we're going to potentially see, not necessarily all in real estate, but insolvencies increase, which means that those tenancies and those landlords will be out of pocket. Yep. Like you've mentioned, also, then the journey starts in recovering deferred rental payments that have been agreed to. I mean, the commercial tenants have been given three rounds of relief. They've been offered under the Ombudsman's regulations or what have you. So I think, and I believe you've got 2 years to pay deferred rent back. One of my commercial clients, who's an expert on this matter, shared that with me. So, yeah, I think the falling out, as you put, we'll start to see whether some businesses get out of their leases because either A, they don't need them, or they go under, or they're in breach of their lease. What will be interesting to see is how heavy-handed landlords will be either keeping a tenant in there that's not paying very well, or faced with a vacancy, and how long for, and then what incentives do they have to entice, and what marketplace rent will they get on a new lease deal.
And that is the toss-up as well. You know, I know myself personally with the Airbnb market being hit with the lack of tourism, vacancies are enormous. And everywhere I look, every agent that I'm speaking to, their vacancies are double or treble what it normally would be for this period of time.
Oh, I'm definitely seeing that with my clients, Michael, particularly residential, huge numbers of vacant properties.
I probably should just, Mark, correct myself there, because I was speaking to an agent just recently who's in sale. She has 0 vacancy. So I think regional Victoria is doing okay. It's Melbourne. It's been biggest hit. So the fact that we've got a lack of tourism, the fact that we've also, you know, the tennis is being impacted, Grand Prix has been impacted. We've got the lack of Airbnb. We've got more Airbnbs coming back into the normal market. It's just upheaval.
Oh,
and managers, so you go.
Also, you've got a lack of international students, Michael. So it's not a great time to be a landlord of residential properties in Melbourne CBD. If you're a renter, it's a tenant's market. Right at this moment, there's some amazing deals to be had for apartments in the city.
And Mark, how do you see this translating back through to what you do? I know what is happening to me. I'm already, clients are ringing me and asking me how I can assist them with, particularly around the training of the Tenancies Act. It's mainly around the word that I'm being talked to, not the word, but the theory, the theme is conflict resolution. How do you see that's going to happen in what you're doing?
I think there's going to be a lot of stressed out property managers. So whether there's going to be a falling out of staff leaving, or whether we're going to need to provide extra pairs of hands through temp to provide support with our clients that are going through that journey, and having to manage those conversations and evictions or whatever the case may be. I think us providing support with either additional staff through the temporary desk, or even if it's short-term permanent or 12-month contract, extra pairs of hands, if the agency can justify the cost, you know, to deal with those matters. Because the alternative is, Michael, if you overload your property managers more than what they're being now, the chance of attrition and losing them, it escalates even higher.
Absolutely. Now we've got the change to the Residential Tenancies Act. That's going to be, how are you handling that, Mark, even with your...
Actually, I wouldn't mind if you gave me a small education piece about what major impacts are with that, Michael, because I actually haven't had my head around it, nor have I asked one of my property management candidates about them. Normally, if I want to educate myself about something in the market, I ask when I'm interviewing a candidate, tell me about that. Yep. So, what are the major changes?
Mark, there's 130 new changes. So probably if we started today, I reckon by 3 days from now, I'll be able to actually come back to you and finish most of those. The difficulty is it hasn't been formalised.
Right.
Is that there's a draft act that's been given to the REIV to review, but my understanding is Consumer Affairs are finalising it by the end of this month, being January. Then it gets launched 29th March, I think it is. So then it goes out to public consultation, training and education. So there's about a 6-week period where the industry needs to be completely overhauled.
That's a very small window, Michael. And look, I know you said there's 130 changes. Do they largely favour the tenant or the landlord?
Bit of both. Bit of both. There's a whole range. There's not a lot of favour in the landlord's position, but there's lots. Some of them have already been introduced along the way. There was a staggered rollout, but there's minimum standards is probably going to be the biggest one for the landlords that they need to get their head around, and that is the levels of which properties need to be. You know, it's interesting, Mark. I've been speaking in the New Zealand market for the last couple of years. Got a couple of clients over there. They had minimum standards over in New Zealand, and I'm saying this because obviously that's where you're from, where they had to put insulation in, and it's like that's that really shouldn't be even something which is debated, but that's a minimum standard over in many of the places. I was in Queenstown a couple of years ago, and that was massive, where a lot of properties just didn't have insulation in their properties. Yeah. But then there's the next one, Mark. The next fallout, I think, is going to be reintegrating back into offices. How do you see that playing out? So I've been working from home since July last year. I've got up when I've wanted. I've had a suit from here on up, but from there down, I'm still in my pajamas or a tracksuit and slippers. If I want to go and walk the dog at 11 o'clock and pick up the kids from school, I can. I'll make dinner during the day. Now I can't. How is that going to impact, do you think, the staff psyche and coming back to work?
Look, it's going to be really varied, in my opinion, Michael, because I think to a certain degree, and I'm one of these that subscribe to this, is I was actually pleased to come back to the office. I like to be interacting with my staff. It motivates me more. I found I got a bit of cabin fever personally with the isolation. Now, on the contrary, some people like that. They like being having that, being able to run their day, like you just said, walk the dog at 11, that sort of thing. So there's going to be some people that are going to not enjoy doing that, and there might be some resistance, and they'll be the ones that are really pushing to work from home as much as possible. And that'll come down to the employer and what their flexible workplace policy is going to be moving forward. And then those others that like the interaction and motivation and need it and are running back and embracing it.
Yep. And we spoke a little bit before, Mark, around the, a lot of employers are now weighing up either a 4-day on-site, 1 day off, or a 3-day on-site, 2 days off. Flexible. You need to be really flexible, because we've become accustomed to being able to work. And the industry is really, in many instances, geared towards being agile, cloud-based technology.
Yeah, absolutely. The technology, the fact that we've had this forced upon us last year, and business had to adapt very quickly, and technology's allowed that to a certain degree. So I think, as we said in the previous session, Michael, the 3 and 2, I'm hearing a bit lately, 3 days in the office, 2 days from home, seems to be sort of a popular trend at the moment. But time will tell as to, and it comes down to the decision makers of a business and how flexible they are. To a certain degree, will determine their destiny as to whether they'll hold on to staff or not.
Yeah. And Mark, finally, the changes to the education standards, or like you've just really started to get your head around that, and you've highlighted to a number of your clients. I think probably the thing which has startled you the most in our conversations is that the lack of knowledge and the lack of communication, and it's fairly significant.
Very. Look, people that I just assumed in the positions that they're being in that were aware of this, I was very, very surprised at the lack of, and this is even just before Christmas, that people were not really aware of what the changes are and when they're taking effect. So once I got my head around them prior to Christmas and started talking to clients that weren't aware of it, I then decided, gee, this is huge and the industry needs to know. So I sent out a marketing communication on Monday morning to decision makers of real estate businesses, making them aware of really and I've broken it down into layman's terms of what the major changes really are and how it's going to impact the industry. So it's huge. If I look at a silver lining in the increase of number of units on the minimum educational entry-level qualification, Michael, I think it might raise the bar in terms of the calibre of candidate that gets through the education, which might put a more professional, higher aptitude individual into the real estate industry. So if I was looking for a silver lining in that might be one.
Yeah, that's probably that's very pie in the sky stuff, Mark, isn't it? It's you are searching, you're grappling for that silver lining, because in a market which is, and you know this more than I, which is already really struggling to have enough position filled with quality staff that have experience, staff that just don't have that aptitude to upskill regularly. We've already got some pressures on the labour market. I think this is probably also going to be a detractor for the young person that would ordinarily say, look, I'll go and do my agent's rep and I'll work at a bar, I'll be a leasing cadet on weekends, I'll do this and I'll do that, but I don't know if I really want to be a professional real estate agent. I just want to do it as a part-time job.
Look, it's huge. It's really huge. Rightly, what you've pointed out so far is a deterrent. The investment cost now to get the entry-level qualification is substantial. And the question bears, with no guarantee of employment once you complete it, whether younger people in particular that might have not long come out of TAFE or left school have that sort of funds lying around. So that's one issue. And I mean, we're already in a marketplace where there's a reluctance from real estate business owners to embrace new blood as it is now. Most of their mindset is, my rent roll is my superannuation retirement fund. I can't place it in the hands of someone with no experience and watch it walk out the door to my competitor across the road. That's been an age-old problem in my 20 years of recruiting for the industry that hasn't changed. Added to that, Michael, the amount of property development that's happened in Melbourne over the years with all the high-rise construction that's happened there, surely it's not all being sold to investors, but a lot has. One of those properties settles, that injects an extra amount of rentable properties into the Melbourne market. So we've constantly got more rentable properties coming in, but the industry as a whole hasn't really done anything to address bringing on the appropriate levels of new blood to cater for it, which is why we've got a dire situation as it stands now. And this licensing thing is not going to help it.
Absolutely. Mark, I don't want to end on a negative note, but, you know, there's 4 more challenges, and we didn't even talk about COVID. Didn't even talk about what COVID is there, you know, whether that's, you know, open for inspections or, you know, all the restrictions and government policy around that. We just talked about those 4 massive impacts to the industry. So it'll be interesting to sort of sit here in 12 months' time and say, so COVID was a pretty ordinary year, 2020, and 2021, gee, we got through that one, you know.
Well, 2021, this time next year, be interesting to see, because, you know, all the moratoriums and the wash-ups, the new Tenancies Act and all those changes largely should have been worked through by then. So the landscape of what the industry will be in will be interesting. And I guess finally on that note, to do with the educational shift, Michael, I expect that there might be a flurry of people running out and getting the old 3-unit agents rep course done prior to 30th of September 2021, because it has to be completed by that date. Then I think you've still got the customary 5 years to then get employed and have that registered to a license.
Yep. And look, you and I both in the same mindset, which is trying to help new entrants into the industry with what it is that you do. So anyone that's looking to get into the industry, feel free to give Mark, follow up Mark at buckmasterhawkey.com.au, or I'm writing a program with a colleague of mine, and we're rolling that out as well. So more to come on that. Mark, thank you very much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you once again.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for your time.